So we are live. I think we're live. I'm waiting to see if I can see anything. Yes, we are live. I'm here with Alex. Alex, how are you doing?
Doing great. Great to be here. Thank you very much
Yeah,
for inviting me.
I'm thrilled and excited, and my wife is thrilled and excited. She watches your talks with the other Alex. How do you pronounce his name?
Mercuris, Alexander
Okay.
Mercuris.
Any relation to Mercury, the god of communication?
No, but a relation to one of the, if not the most famous actress in Greek history,
Oh, who's that?
Melina Mercouri.
Melina
Yeah.
McCurdy.
She actually had a lot of work in the U.S. as well. She did a lot of film and theater
Wow.
in the U.S. as well. Yeah.
In what era? Like the recent times?
No, no, like in the oh gosh, like the 50s, 60s,
Okay.
70s, yeah.
Did she sing?
Yes, I believe she did sing, yeah.
Uh, And so how did the two of I'm going to talk about mainly about you, but how did the two of you meet? And for the listeners, it's the Duran. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, correct. That is
How did the
correct.
two of you meet?
We were on separate business trips, but meeting the same person in Moscow in like 2016, 17. And we just happened to be at the same place at the same time. And we just started talking, and that was the first time we met. And then the Duran came about as a project, as a website, really a blog about, I want to say maybe 6 months later. Maybe my timeline is a little off there too, but anyway, 6 months later, the Duran came about, and we connected again
And so
to do the
was the
Duran.
Greek connection a significant bonding point or no?
Yeah, it was, I would say, because at that time there was a lot of stuff going on uh, around Greece and Greece's economic situation. So that's something we talked about, and we kind of had the same views as to why Greece is where it is, and we talked about that. So yeah,
Have the borders changed a lot over the centuries in Greece, northern Greece, or?
over the centuries, not recently, but you have Cyprus, which is not.
That's where you are now,
Not
yeah?
a yeah, not a part of Greece, but it's of a Hellenic culture, and yeah, recently we did have the invasion of Cyprus in '74.
Are you Cypriot?
Yes,
Oh yeah,
Greek
okay.
Cypriot. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
yes.
Interesting. My wife is Greek, as you know, and she's from, I won't dox her by naming the exact village because it's a small village, but in northern Greece near Thessaloniki. Have you
Mm.
been to Thessaloniki?
Oh yeah, I did a lot of videos from Thessaloniki.
Ah,
Hopefully, I'll be back there in the next. I don't know. I'm hoping maybe the next 2 to 3 months I'll go back. But it's to me, it's the jewel of Greece, a beautiful city.
yeah, I lived there with Anna, and it's one of my favorite places. I love the square with the
Yeah.
cafes. I love, we lived in Saranda Ecclesias. Do you know that? 40 churches. Do you know
Hmm.
Jojo's Cafe by any chance?
Oh
Jojo's?
no, no, I don't. No.
Amazing memories of this sort of barbecue, like real open fire cooking, and they would sort of have a smoky flavor. They would wrap feta and hot peppers in aluminum foil and put it in this oven, like this fire oven, and it was just delicious. And the French fries and the music and the warmth of the people. It's just beautiful, beautiful memories of everything about Greece I love. I mean, I don't love, the corruption and stuff like that, but it's a beautiful, beautiful country. My favorite. And the sunshine, the food,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
And Thessaloniki is a nice city. It's got a lot of history and incredible food. Sitting right there on the water. It's a really nice place.
Amazing. The people
Yeah.
watchers on Niki's street or whatever it's called there.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
We lived also in Mykonos. Have you been to Mykonos?
Of course. Yes.
You've been
Many
all over
times.
to all the islands.
All the islands, no. The main ones, and some islands which are off the beaten track as well. But there's way too many islands to cover them all. That's for sure.
It's amazing the sunshine. I actually found a 3,000-year-old pot, a water jug in I think it was when we were living on Naxos, and it's just amazing the culture and the history and all that. But I want to talk a little bit about I wish because I was an atheist at the time when I was there with my wife, but I wish I had been Christian so that I could have gone. We were so close to Halkidiki and the
Mm.
monasteries and all that sort of thing. Have you been there?
You mean Mount Athos,
Yeah,
Aotearoa?
yeah.
No, I have not. It's one of my dreams to go. Um,
Is it hard to
my
get in?
father, my father goes every year pretty much. It's you have to you do have to plan.
Yeah.
You do have to plan. You have to get permission to enter. Of course, only men can go. So it's a very. I mean, I know a lot of people who have been there. It's a very special place, and people that I know, friends of mine, have told me their own personal miracles from going there. Now, people watching me want to believe it. They may not want to believe it. It's up to them. But these are this is anecdotal, but what friends have told me about the experiences they've had there while speaking to monks sounds pretty incredible. But it's a beautiful place, from what my father tells me. He says it's a very beautiful place. It's a place where you go to really just put things in focus, and you decide which monasteries you want to visit, because there's many different monasteries. It's the Greeks, the Cypriots, the Russian,
Ah,
Bulgarian. There's many different monasteries. You can
ah,
also decide to walk off on your own and perhaps visit monks who are in more isolation
wow,
than the monks in the monastery, like the monks who are living by themselves for decades,
wow.
or living in pairs for decades, way out off in the woods or the forested areas. So I mean, there's a lot you can explore in Mount Athos, but it is an exploration of the self more than anything.
Yeah. So if you look on the map, it looks like three fingers, the Halkidiki area. Is it all Mount Athos or just one of the
Well, no,
fingers?
Mount Athos is an offshoot of that area. You also have a lot of tourist areas on the Three Fingers.
Okay.
The Greeks refer to those three fingers, and each finger is like a different type of tourist experience as well.
Okay.
So those places are fine. Everyone could go there, but
Okay.
to actually get on to the Mount Athos is a whole different story. That's a whole different deal.
Have you read all of or part of the Philokalia or however you pronounce it?
No, I have
Are
not.
you aware of it?
Yes, I
The
am.
writings of the Desert
Yes,
Fathers, I guess.
yes,
I
yes.
read the entire thing. It took me 11 months and it was devastating to my spiritual life because it's so simple and it's so convicting in terms of appetites, like control your food, your water,
Mm.
your sleep, your thoughts. It's just pure and simple and there's a lot of repetition and it's just like you have nowhere to run and nowhere to hide when you read this because it's just like you know that you are addicted to food and water and sleep and every creature. You know that. And so you just have to admit that you don't love God as much as maybe you would like to think that you do, because you just see your attachment to this creation, which is beautiful, which is good. But the Desert Fathers really understood how attached we are, and I'm still sort of recovering from reading that and trying not to fall into despair because it's very challenging to live to be in the world but not of the world, as it says
Right.
in the Bible. So
Yeah,
let's
Mount Athos is a lot of the monks in general. A lot of the monks in Greece. It's a lot of it is about repetition.
okay.
It's repeating many prayers over and over again, over
Do
long periods of time
do you
to
yeah.
come to some sort of peace.
Do you pray the Jesus prayer habitually?
A personal question, but yes,
You do?
yes,
Okay. I don't
yes.
know if that's taboo to talk about that, but
No, I mean, to be quite honest, on our show, we don't really, because we try to keep things balanced, I say,
Yeah.
as we do our analysis. We don't really get too much into religion, though we do cover religious topics at times. Our own personal religion is something that we rarely discuss, to be quite honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
People know I'm Orthodox, a Greek Orthodox, but I think beyond that, I don't think we've really talked much about it.
Well, my wife, she watches. I don't watch much online stuff at all, but my wife watches, and she'll call me in. Hey, David, Alex is in another church, and you'll walk into a church and you'll show, and you're just, obviously quiet in the church and just showing the beauty of the icons and these sorts of things, and just the architecture and the pious people that are there sometimes. So yeah, it gave me the impression that you definitely have a reverence for Christianity, and I figured out you're probably Orthodox. But do you mind during this interview talking about yourself and your
No, no, not at all. No,
okay.
not at all. Not
So
at all.
how were you
I'm just very shy when I talk about myself, to be quite honest.
how
Yeah.
many siblings do you have?
Two.
Okay. And can you just reach back in your memory? I don't know how much time you spend in the past. I don't think about the past much, but I can remember some of my earliest memories about God and religion. What are some of your earliest remembrances? Probably they're tied up with church and the smells and the bells of the divine liturgy. Can you just talk about what impression that had on you before the age of reason, before you could sort of think for yourself, but you were impressionable? Did you enjoy the atmosphere? Did you understand who this man with the beard was, the priest? And was your grandmother very pious? Just talk about some of those images maybe that you have from your early childhood.
I didn't understand what was going on, but I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy the large the large time the time period
It's long.
dedicated to it. Like,
It's
yeah, it's
long.
long. So as a
Yeah.
kid, I was a little. I mean, it wasn't that I didn't like the atmosphere. I did like the atmosphere, and even to this day, I love the atmosphere of church. Like you said, the smells, the liturgy, the hymns, the song. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I like it. The icons. It's nice. It's a beautiful experience. But when I was a child, it was just, as a kid, it's the length of it that you're kind of restless, But yeah, I think that's normal. I don't think that's anything out of
Yeah.
the ordinary.
Well, I'm an adult and I find the Greek Orthodox liturgy long. I find it very long
Yeah.
because
The-
I'm in the West here, so it's like in and out, 45 minutes, an hour max.
yeah. Yeah, I've been to various different liturgies in the U.S. as well. When I lived in the U.S., I actually went to a Catholic school for a year when
Oh,
I was in the U.S. So I'm familiar with the liturgies of other religions, but the Greek Orthodox one is actually even lighter than the Russian Orthodox, for
oh,
example,
oh,
because in the Greek Orthodox they actually decided to put seats in the church. The Russian Orthodox is you're compelled to stand.
wow.
But I'll be honest, when I've been to the Russian Orthodox, even though when I was first in Russia, I didn't quite understand the language or what they were saying at all, and even to this day, I grapple with it. But the standing part, I actually preferred it to the sitting.
Hmm.
It does keep your attention more focused on the actual liturgy because by being forced to stand, you're in a way being forced to partake in what's going on and to pay attention.
Wow.
I don't know if that makes sense, but sometimes when you sit down, you drift off.
Oh yeah. Always, always. It's a struggle. I'm just thinking about my next meal when I'm in the pews at church, just like, what am I going to have for lunch? That's a bit of a temptation, like I said, with the philokalia. So, um, always the addictions are always there. But with your family, can you think of a family member? You don't have to tell me anything that's too personal, but can you think of a family member, named or unnamed, that was particularly devout? You might have this crazy aunt who was just like fanatical or whatever. Like here in the West, we have very little reverence and respect for religion. So if anyone's even slightly religious, they're seen like a freak. In Greece, it's different, and in the East, it's different because there's a culture. There's a culture that is saturated, and it's a more, it's a deeper and calmer situation. I think you have fewer sort of religious fanatics on the street corner preaching, but you might just have 90% of the people humbly going about their business without sticking their nose in each other's business or forcing their religion down other people's throats. Whereas in the West, you've got these battles about religion. My religion's the best, and why don't you join our religion? These sorts of things. So in the East and in Europe in general, you have a more of a calm and mature experience with religion. I would say, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but was there a family member that was maybe became a priest or a religious? Do you call them nuns in Greece?
Yeah, we have we have the priests and the monks and the monasteries and all of that. But I, I would say my grandmother was very, both from both sides were very religious, and my parents, but not to the point of inhibiting our own exploration or development, so to speak. I mean, it was always like my grandmother was very religious. In Pascha and Easter, I mean, it was not the halfway type of fasting, the real deal type. I mean, by the book, right?
You didn't do oils or anything, right? Is that how you do it in Greece?
I tried it, and during Easter I do. Perhaps the last week I go halfway. I have to admit I'm not full. I got the last week. I'll try to do a strict, but before that, I'm not so good on that. But I do have family members who are. I mean, they follow it by the book, no doubt about it. But my parents were very much like. The one thing I remember about when I was growing up, my mom would always, if I were to say, I don't know, doubt God or say bad things about God, say as you're a kid growing up, you say dumb stuff when you're a kid or a teenager. That was kind of the red line. And I could say dumb and stupid things about all kinds of other stuff. But if I said something bad about God, that was it. That was the red line. That I remember.
Makes an impression.
Very well.
Makes an impression. And
everything else I could, say stupid things about my brothers, about, whatever. That's okay. That's fine. But the minute I started to doubt God or said something bad there, it was stop right away. That's, yeah. So that I remember. Yeah.
So, I'm Canadian, and the faith is very weak here, particularly in Quebec, where I am. We had the Révolution Tranquille. I don't know if you know about that in the 60s. They threw off the shackles of the oppressive Catholic Church, allegedly, and the rest is history with the sexual revolution and everything else that came along with that. And I was raised loosely Protestant, and I loved God, and I loved going to church, and I loved Jesus. And then I had a dream at 14, lost my faith. I had a dream about Jesus and lost my faith, ironically. But and then I went deep into darkness of adolescence and puberty and frustrated youth, and ended up being at the end of just before my conversion back to God, and at the age of 39 in 2009, I was actually calling myself a Satanist. I was an atheistic Satanist. So I went really deep and dark into atheism, and ended up in Satanism, atheistic Satanism. And then I came back to God and Christ and his church. And I see now, in retrospect, I see sexual immorality as a big part of the rebellion. Without going into personal details, can you just talk about puberty and rebellion and sexuality in the Orthodox Church, and the family and intimacy and marriage and these sorts of things? Just generally, talk about the dark side. And were you ever an atheist like I was, or did you always believe in God? Did you have ups and downs in your faith journey? And keep it as light or impersonal as you want, but just talk a little bit about the dark side.
Yeah, I think everyone has their bouts with that, but I would say that my bouts with, say, the dark side or atheism or learning about, I don't know, I remember like maybe picking up a book and reading a chapter on Scientology. I remember that, or something else, Satanism. Maybe looking that up on the internet or something. I think those bouts for me were like a day
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or something.
Okay.
You know, it was just
Dabbling.
bad stuff going on in my life, and or as I was growing up as a teenager or a young adult growing up, and just having bad things happen, and you just kind of sit there and say, well, all this bad stuff. What I think is bad. I mean, there's other people who suffer so much more than what I
Yeah.
would even consider suffering. It was ridiculous when I look back on it. But you sit there and you say, oh, as a spoiled kid, you say, oh, I renounce God and I'm going to learn about this or that, or it's very much, to me, it's very much that child that rebels against their father.
Yeah.
The father is patient and loving and says, okay, go off and do your thing, and I'm here. And when you knock on that door, I'll open again. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I think with me, it was just a couple of days here and there, and then I would kind of, I've got the personality type where I always try to remain positive. I try to be positive, and I, after a day or two, I shake the bad things off, and I just continue to look forward. And that's what I would do. I would just kind of dabble a little bit and read, and then I would say, yeah, this is not me.
Yeah.
This is not me.
What I see in Greece and in other countries of the old world is a certain stability that they have in the family, and a large part of that I would attribute to religion. Do you agree with that or no?
Yes, I would say a huge part of that is religion, but it's being lost now as well. I mean,
Even
in Greece,
in
it's
Greece?
something. Yeah, yeah. I would say this. I would say the dynamic in Greece may be a little different in that my generation has definitely lost it. The younger generation seems more
Ah,
devoted to it.
okay.
The older generation is absolutely more devoted.
Okay.
But I would say this generation, and I consider my generation as very much the spoiled generation.
Mm.
We grew up in a time of prosperity, of no wars, really, real prosperity. All things were good and peaceful, and the technology boom, and everything seemed great. Money everywhere, fun, bars, clubs, all of it was fantastic. And I think that generation lost it. I mean, Greece does have a problem with marriage,
Okay.
family. I can't find someone to marry, to be quite honest. Yeah, so I mean, it's hard. It's very difficult.
The quality of the women is not there, or just the numbers?
I don't want to say the quality of the women or the quality of the men. I don't want to place the blame on women or men. There's just not people are just not connecting anymore. They're just not connecting. I think that I think there's an economic factor as well, in that there's a lot of people that are very, very scared to get married because they just can't find their economic path. They're kind of worried to say, okay, now I can get married and start a family. So I think that plays a factor in it. I think the technology, the
Are you talking about online dating hookup culture?
exactly, yeah, the hookup culture, everything else that comes out of. I mean, I don't want to pin it. I'm very nervous to pin it on the West, but it is that attitude of individualism and not believing in God or faith, and that whole attitude of just kind of believe in yourself, go out on your own. You don't need family, you don't need a marriage. It's kind of that liberal Western attitude, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But I don't want to say that this is unique to the West. I just think maybe by using the word liberal Western attitude, maybe it adds a little more context to it in a way.
My wife is Greek, and she was living at home at age 27 with her mother and father and grandmother, who was a widow, all black, all in black, all since the death of her
Mhm.
husband. I think that's pretty traditional, old school
Yes.
in Greece.
Yes.
And I actually kidnapped her to marry her. Like I had to, she said, "Okay, come and pick me up. I'm going to be in the back with my suitcases." So it's like because her parents didn't want her to marry a non-Greek. So I'm as non-Greek as you can get. I'm like Scottish, Irish, Welsh, English, whatever heritage, and they were trying to, hook her up with lawyers, doctors, all these great prospects for husbands, right? Tall. I'm like a short little garden gnome compared to these guys that, and a loser, like no prospects for the future or anything, and just a bit of a hippie, a loser. But so it was kind of funny. Like it was culturally interesting for me seeing that she lives at home. She got a strong family. They got the whole three generations are there, and I'm kind of like kidnapping her, and I took her off to a different city and married her, and then she phoned she phoned her mother and said, "Oh, I'm in Ottawa and I got married to this guy. No, he's not Greek." And so it's a big drama. But the reason I'm telling you this is because it's a colorful story, but it also emphasizes the fact that in the Mediterranean, people tend to be welcome to stay with their family until they're married. Like, I mean, that's just the way it is. I was sort of kicked out at age 17. I was told, you can start paying rent or you can just get out. Like that was it. So I just left. Very different from the culture of Greece. I remember being in Greece as a 19-year-old and seeing on a city bus a child get on, and there were no seats, and an elderly Greek beautiful woman just patted her knee, and the child didn't know her but got and sat on her knee. It's just like such a beautiful, touching place. And I met the older people in Greece at that time, and I just felt the instant openness to humanity in strangers, perfect strangers, the welcoming and all these sorts of things. So I know I keep dwelling on this, the beauty of the old world charm and the Greek hospitality and these sorts of things and the family. Maybe just talk from your perspective on that shelter that's given to kids where they can stay at home. Like I have, for example, Arabic friends, they do the same thing. Like they're from the
Mhm.
Mediterranean, and it's like they're not going to kick their children out. They're not going to do that. So maybe just talk about that and how it contrasts with what you've seen in the West.
Yeah, I would say Greece is not unique in that viewpoint. But I'll speak from the Greek perspective. I couldn't imagine if I had kids kicking the kids out of the home. I mean, I'm just being honest. I couldn't imagine it. To me, this was, and I grew up and lived in the U.S. all my life, so I understood when you're 18, you go to university and that's it. But even for a Greek family in the U.S., yeah, you go to university, you can live at the dorms, but the door is always open for you to come back and live with us, or get a house next door to us, or we'll give you the the house next door to us, or something like. I mean, they want their family to be together, and I don't know. It seems natural, normal to me. Why would you want the reverse? Of course, I understand that the U.S. is a big place, and so if you get a job if you live in New York, and you get a job in California, okay, that's the way it is. It's a big place. It's spread out, um, but um, but in Greece, for the most part, it's the family wants to be together as often as possible, and there's no time limit as to when you have to leave your home. I mean, to me, that's 18 you have to leave, or 20, or even 30. It's fine. It doesn't. For the Greeks, it's not a weird thing to meet someone and for them to be living with their family or next door to their family. That's actually very, very normal. And I think that should be the way society should be structured, if you want my honest opinion, because the parents, the grandparents, the parents, they take care of the generation under them, and it's only right for that generation as they get older to reciprocate and take care of the people that took care of them. That seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's amazing. It warms my heart, when I think about some of the people I met in Greece. And like you said, it's not unique to Greece, but it's sort of the only Mediterranean country I spent any amount of time in. But there's a sort of a downside to that close-knit society. There's a downside to it. I don't want to dwell on the negative. I know you're a positive person. But here in Canada, I've attended, various different parishes, different churches, all Catholic. Well, I've been to Orthodox a few times. But when I go to an ethnic church, whether it's Italian or Maronite or whatever it is, there's a lot more scrutiny on dress code. What do you do for a living? Who's your daughter? Who's your son? Who's your father? What are you wearing? It seems more superficial and judgmental. Correct me if I'm wrong, but are the ethnic communities policing each other to make sure everyone's proper and their lawn is nicely cut and all these sorts of things? Is that the case?
In Greece, no, but probably the Greek diaspora, yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, probably, yeah.
there's a sort of a time warp phenomenon too in the diaspora when people leave and they just want to stick to the
Yeah.
old ways, but the home country is moving
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, the whole country moves on. I mean, in Athens, okay, if you're in Athens and you meet a girl and you're not okay, yeah, I think the parents of both the man and the woman, out of interest and out of looking out for their well being, of course they're going to ask, well, where does she come from? Who's her family? What does she do for a job? I mean, that's
Common sense.
natural in any situation. Even you have a buddy of yours. It's like, oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
How's work? That's natural. But I think in the U.S., the Greek, like say the Greek American community, yeah, there'll probably be more. Well, I'm going to hook you up with this person and that person, and let's try to keep our community, tight knit and insulated as well. And I think that's also natural. I think it's not only specific to the Greek community, but I think if you're this diaspora living in another country, it's natural to want to keep your community safe or insulated from forces that are foreign to you in a way. Yes, you're living in a new country, so you have to respect that country and learn that country's culture and language. That's the one side of it. But the flip side is that you also want to make sure that your culture and your language and your community is remains intact as well. So it's an interesting balancing act when you're a foreigner living somewhere else.
Just giving a shout out to my friend Matthew in the live chat. He's a good friend of mine. I've never met him, but we've chatted back and forth for years on my podcast, and he's in Australia, so that's why he's awake at this hour, at this ungodly hour. Um, so there was something else about the Greeks, and I was going to mention. Let me just try to think now. Um, Yeah, so I do. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about because you seem to know a lot about politics. I don't know anything about politics, but that seems to be your main emphasis on the Duran. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Geopolitics,
for
is
the
that
most
what they
part.
call it?
Geopolitics. Yeah, yeah,
That's
the
big
politics
picture.
of the
That's
world.
big
Yeah.
picture stuff, right? Um,
Most of it's big picture. Yeah, most of it's big picture. Yeah.
I'm really not interested just because it does. I just can't grasp it. But yeah, there is the question of immigration. I'm very pro-immigration. Why? Because I love color. I love diversity. I love food. I love languages. I love seeing people with different costumes. I love the fact that in Montreal, I don't know if you've been to Montreal, but I love the fact that we can see Hasidic Jews and we see Arab families and we see all kinds of people of different skin colors, if that matters, and cultures, and like I said, the food, the music, and everything else like that. So it's sort of a stupid reason to be pro-immigration, but I also like getting labor done because I work in construction and we don't have labor now because our immigration, I guess, is dwindling. But it's mainly a selfish reason that I just love people and diverse languages and cultures and these sorts of things. Uh, Now, I'm neither conservative nor progressive or anything like that. I consider myself a Christian, ignorant about politics. But can you talk about this anti-immigration sort of vibe I've been picking up on in the right-wing politic sphere? Am I wrong to get that impression that they're sort of anti-immigration? And if so, why? Because I love diverse peoples. Can you talk about that?
I don't think it's so much anti-immigration as it is and immigration that that they
Unchecked.
feel, yeah, that they feel is not properly done.
Okay.
Because there's different ways you can look at immigration. Immigration, first of all, immigration to me has to be done by the book. I mean, there's certain legal procedures to become an immigrant. There's a lot of countries that I would like to live in. I would like to spend some time in. There are, but it's very difficult to immigrate there, and I don't meet the requirements. Okay, I accept that. I accept that. So that country is off the table for me. Now, if there was a way for me to migrate somewhere to a country that I want to live in, then I would make sure that I did it in a legal way. So I think that's the one part is there's a lot of people who feel like this immigration is not being done in a legal way. And I can understand that argument because there are a lot of immigrants, especially in the United States, who did spend 5 or 10 years to do it the right way. And so you kind of feel slighted if you're like, well, I went, I didn't buy the book. I paid this amount of money for lawyers. I did my 5 years. I did everything right. And I became a naturalized citizen. And all of a sudden there's other people who are just, becoming immigrants and they're allowed to stay. And that's that. So I can understand that. Yeah. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. I'm just saying you have to have empathy. You have to understand the other person's position from both sides so that you can, get some clarity. There's the other side of immigration, which is a tragic side of immigration, and that comes from the wars, the destabilizing of countries and economies, and leaving people with not many options. And that's the type of immigration that I feel is the most controversial and most misunderstood type of immigration. And when people want to seek refuge in another country because their country has been bombed to the Stone Age for reasons related to whether you can call it imperialism or resources or whatever it is, or weapons of mass destructions in the case of Iraq or whatever it is, it's, this is a tragedy. And you have to help those people. But you're talking about massive numbers as well. And these are numbers that change the fabric of a society and of a community as well. So this is really tough stuff to deal with. The best thing for a country to do is to not destroy another country, right? That's the best thing. That's how you solve that problem. Don't destroy that country. But,
is religion a big part of, is it a numbers game with religion too? Like, hey, let's destroy the West and destroy Christianity? Because you hear a lot of rumors about this attempt to destroy the West. And if you know anything about Freemasonry and these related secret societies that are openly attacking the West and Christianity and God, they make no bones about it. They want reason and materialism to dominate. So is that a big part of the geopolitics? Are people making big moves to work against Christianity? Because you hear people talking about that on the right-wing media.
Well, I think there's a move to destroy Christianity in the West. Absolutely. But if you look at many of the wars that are taking place or have taken place, a lot of them have been directed at destroying countries of Muslim faith. And
okay.
And that's what we've seen over the last half century, say. I'm not saying it's just specific to that faith, but within the United States, I would say the powers that be definitely understand that if there's one religion that they have to tear down, it is Christianity. While the wars usually outside of the West are focused on destroying countries which have an Islamic faith that underpins them, with the exception of what's happening now in Russia and Ukraine, which is, you're looking at two Orthodox countries
Mm.
in this instance. So
My wife wants to know what your opinion is about Putin. Is he Orthodox? Does he believe? Does he worship God? Or is he just going through the motions? What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is. I would say yes. I would say he is
And
Orthodox.
you would hope that he is too.
I would hope that he is. I would just have to take it at face value because I don't know the man. I've never met him. I don't know what his faith
But
is.
he claims to be, yeah?
He claims to be. He claims to go to church. When you see him at church, he's very much a believer, a follower. He blends in. He doesn't try to stand out from what I've seen. Of course, these are media images. So once again, I can't verify this. I do know that Putin makes many trips, not publicized. He makes many trips to Mount Athos.
Ah, no way.
Not publicized.
Wow.
Off the books, so to speak.
Wow.
That I do know as a fact.
Wow.
Many trips
Wow.
to Mount Athos.
Well, that's encouraging.
And I have heard, and this is anecdotal, but I've heard from people close and in Mount Athos that that Putin gets much of his guidance on various issues from various monks and priests in Mount Athos.
Wow.
Don't take that to the bank. Wow. This is anecdotal. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I have some inside information. I've heard, being in Greece, knowing priests and knowing people in the church, you hear stuff like this. It could be completely
propaganda.
Yeah. But he does make the trips to Mount Athos. This is fact.
I got goosebumps when you said that. It's just amazing. I really hope that he loves and serves God, and God can use people even if those people are not particularly holy. It's King Cyrus in the Old Testament. We read about him. So what, I've always had, because I don't like politics, I don't understand politics, but I have a chemistry with these people that we see, the public image. Like, I like Trump. I just like him. I don't trust him or think he's necessarily very Christian, but I just have a good chemistry with him. He's an egomaniac, whatever. But I like Putin. He seems like a manly man. He seems like I'm sure he's done some very horrible things in the KGB, whatever. But I just like him. I like his face, and I just have a good chemistry with him. I always liked the enemies of the US for whatever reason, like Muammar Gaddafi. I always liked him. I don't know much about him, but I just had a sort of sympathy for him. Anyone that the West was attacking, I just sort of said, hey, I wonder what the other side of the coin is. And I always cheer for the underdog. Can you talk about the West generally? I tend to view the West, I don't know if I'm going to get banned from YouTube for saying this, but I tend to view the regime in the West as evil and godless. And if they're persecuting someone, I tend to sympathize with that person. Can you just sort of talk about that to me as a human being, why I might have that attitude and which parts of it might be healthy and which parts might not be so healthy?
I would say that the West wasn't always evil and God. I don't even know if it's evil and God. The leadership of the West, it has become this ideology, which is the antithesis of God. This ideology, it's this neoliberal globalist ideology, and the neoliberal ideology is very much about not having faith in a higher power or God or Christ. It's about paying homage to the environment, to the big corporations, to the government institutions, this super institution that they want to create. That's who is going to take care of you. That's who's going to provide for you. That's going to be the person who tells you what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong. And you have to submit all of your humanity and your autonomy to this super institution. They know best. That is our leadership. That's our leadership in the West. and it is about removing people's humanity.
You include
That
Greece in that, the leadership of Greece?
yes, yes,
Who is your
yes,
leader
absolutely.
now?
Mitsotakis, Prime Minister Mitsotakis. Yeah, yes, absolutely, because they're part of the European Union. Now, I'm not saying that European Union leaders are that there aren't European Union leaders that aren't religious or may not have faith. I don't know. I don't know what their own personal beliefs are. But to be part of this club, you have to be part of this super institution that sits above everything else. And that institution demands not 80% compliance, not 90, it demands 100% compliance. It is an ideology, it's a dogma, it is a cult, and it demands that you submit. Period. There is no wiggle room, there is no compromise. There's none of that. That is where we are with the what many people call now the collective West.
Okay.
That's where we are. What you're seeing now in Russia and the East and many other cultures, you're seeing these cultures renounce that. They don't want any part of this, and understandably so. They're like, this is not who we are, and this is why we are where we are right now.
Thank God for the East. So, since I really want to be careful when I talk about this, but I just want to touch very briefly on science. I studied physics. I've worked in quantum physics. I've worked in astrophysics. I'm not no genius, but I understand the goals and the limits of natural science. And it seems like over the past 3 years, without getting into anything controversial, there seems to be this sort of weird idea for the first time ever in the history of the intellect that there's can be such thing as a consensus in the natural sciences, and we need that 100% compliance and conformity of thought. And it's anti-science. It's scientism in the pejorative sense of the word, where there's sort of a elevation and a worship of this false science or political science or whatever you want to call it. It really is frightening. It's scary to me, and there's something in the human nature. I don't know if these the collective West. I don't know if they should study psychology to discover, or just talk to a regular human being to discover, that there is a natural human spirit that wants freedom, it wants independence, it wants to express itself, and often it will rebel against conformity, it will rebel against compliance, it will rebel against mandates that are irrational and unreasonable. So, I mean, I very early on as a human being, I realized that people are difficult to manipulate, and some people want to manipulate, and some people can be manipulated. Some people enjoy being manipulated, and there are other people like myself who will be on guard against manipulation and will fight tooth and nail and even be willing to die rather than to comply. And I'm not talking about anything in particular. I'm talking very generally. There's a human spirit that we want to be proud and free. What's your reaction to that sort of psychological analysis of manipulation, control, and this freedom-loving rebellion, a good sort of rebellion? Do you agree with me that that's part of human nature?
Yeah, it just goes back to what we were talking about with regards to this neoliberal globalism ideology. Everything you said right now is everything that'll drive someone like Trudeau or Obama, or Klaus Schwab, these types of people, Van der Leyen. It'll drive them crazy what you just said, because it goes against their view of the world. They don't want people to be human. They don't want people to express themselves, to have a spirit. They don't want that. They want numbers. They want people in a pod. They want people to do as they say, to comply. Compliance is everything in this new Western ideology. Compliance is paramount for us. When I mean us, the common people, the serfs. and I'm not exaggerating. That is the point of everything we see, whether it's the censorship or the wokeism or whatever we're seeing in the world today, the conflicts that are taking place. It's all about compliance. You have to comply. That is what this ideology and this religion demands of you. That's why you say scientists and consensus. Uh, Science is ever evolving, absolutely, but not in their eyes. In their eyes, this is the consensus. This is how things are. Believe it. Comply with it. If you don't want to believe or comply with it, well, then you're canceled. You're censored. You're an outcast. You're exiled. You know, way back, people used to be exiled, right? In Greece, ancient Greece, people used to be exiled. Right? You speak out against the powers that be. You're exiled now.
They send you to a beautiful Greek island.
Yeah, wherever. Yeah, you're roaming around in exile somewhere on a Greek island or somewhere walking around the Peloponnese, and that's it. You have no home. It's the same thing. It's the same type of thing. You don't want to comply with us, we're going to send you into exile.
Yeah, but we should fear not those who can kill the body, but those who can cast into hell, the one who can cast us into hell. Speaking of Trudeau, my wife wanted me to show you this. She's something of an artist, and she came up with I don't know if you know. Do you know Scooby-Doo?
Yes, of course.
Okay. She loves Scooby-Doo, so she made this political thing. I hope I don't get canceled from the internet for showing this to you. Are you able to see that? I was showing it.
Yes, I can.
It's a little dialogue.
I can see Fred and Shaggy, and
can you see the devil wrapped up in the chair there?
Yes, I can.
That's Trudeau. And so she made a couple of these political cartoons. Here's another one.
There you go.
Everyone's dancing because the RCMP is taking Trudeau off to jail. Okay. So she wanted me to show you those.
Fantastic.
She's quite a lady. My wife Anna. She was 100%, not 99.999, but 100% not interested in politics, religion, philosophy, anything, especially politics. But since over the past 3 years, for reasons that I won't mention because I don't want to get banned from YouTube, over the past 3 years, she's been red-pilled. And the reason I'm telling you this is because the powers that be that want to silence and suppress and get conformity and all that sort of thing has the opposite effect. It has the opposite effect. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. It does not work. You can kill me. You can kill my body. Go for it. Okay? But you're not going to stop the truth. You're not going to bury the truth. You're just helping. Everything you're doing is going against your purpose, and you're helping God. You're helping God's purpose. Even Satan himself, the reason he's tortured and frustrated is because everything he does helps God and God's plan.
That's 100% true. I completely agree with that outlook.
So it's very frustrating being one of the bad guys. So my message, if there are any bad guys listening to this, Trudeau, Legault, Biden, whoever is not with God, you're welcome. You can join us. You could be on the good guys team. And I don't want to disparage anyone's character. I mean, I'm just going by what I see. Like, it just seems like a lot of these people that are claiming to be Catholic, Biden, Trudeau, and Legault, and everyone else. I don't know if you know Legault here in Quebec. Do you know? Yes. They're claiming to be Catholic, and I don't want to judge the heart. I don't want to judge the heart. But there are objective things like abortion where we can, for example, where we can just say, no, that goes against your professed faith. So I would imagine that you and the Orthodox of the Greek and Russian and of every other persuasion, you are pro-life, yes?
I'll say this about Greece and Russian Orthodox and Greek Orthodox. Yes, they are pro-life. I think that goes without question. If you're part of the church, it's not really talked about much, though. To be quite honest, abortion. It's not such a big topic in Greece or Russia or Cyprus or anywhere else I've been.
U.S.
And there are, and actually, the abortion levels, from what I understand, I've had friends tell me that. There's a high rate of abortion in Greece, and I've had people tell me in Russia as well, but it's just not discussed at all.
It's very taboo.
It's very taboo, and it's just something that hasn't been part of mainstream political discourse at all.
It's amazing in the States how it's very visible and vocal. Huh?
Yeah. I don't think it's something people are proud to talk about. to be quite honest. It's not something that they want to talk about or are proud to talk about at all. So they just prefer to not discuss it.
Um, I want to ask you about creationism. I'm a young Earth creationist, as all Christians have been up until very recent times. I don't believe in evolution. I don't believe that I'm an ape or that the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Theotokos, is an ape. Um, and I'm disappointed to learn that allegedly the recent popes in my religion, the Catholic religion, were very favorable to evolutionary theories or whatever, and they seemed open to it, and that's disappointing to me. I want a firm, hard creationist stance where God, by fiat, created everything less than 10,000 years ago. And I know a lot of Orthodox saints talk very, very passionately about creation over against evolution and how demonic evolution is. Are you there with me, or are you just sort of not sure because you haven't looked into it, or is it part of your culture where you just naturally are a creationist? Can you just talk about that?
I think it's part of the culture. You're naturally a creationist. Though, I mean, once again, in modern Greece, as Greece has integrated more tightly with the West, I think now you would probably talk to a Greek and they would say, oh, there would probably be a large minority of the population, maybe even more, that would say, no, it's evolution, because there is a minority of the population, as we discussed earlier, that isn't as religious as their parents and their grandparents. Saying that, I would say once again, I don't think it's such a big issue in Greece, because I think the Greeks, for the most part, are where you are. For the most part, I don't want to say all the Greeks, because I'm sure I'm going to have Greeks that say, "Oh, religion is BS, and it's evolution, all this stuff." But I think for the most part, Greeks, because of our Orthodox faith, we're on the same wavelength of look. For us, God is the Alpha and the Omega. Period. End of story. So it's a very simple approach to life, but for us it works.
Do you, when you look at your geopolitics and you're doing analysis, are you ever conscious of the spiritual battle between good and evil? Or are you always conscious of it, or just sometimes, or never? Like, I mean, the spiritual battle, like God wants his souls, and also Satan wants to grab some of those souls from God. Are you consciously aware of the spiritual element in the battle of geopolitics? Or is it something that's just percolating in the background, and then when you're laying down in bed at night, then you sort of have time to put it in that perspective of the broader spiritual perspective?
No, sometimes it's in the forefront. Sometimes it's very much a part of the battle. Sometimes it's not. What's happening right now, for example, in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, which is really Russia and the collective West. Ukraine is just kind of a proxy. It's not really the main focus of the conflict. And what we're seeing is Russia fighting the collective West in essence. But before the conflict, there was a lot of preparation that took place, and a lot of that preparation was targeted at the Orthodox Church. I mean, there was a lot of moves made by various leaders and administration officials in the collective West who divided the Orthodox Church, made sure to create fissures and ruptures in the Orthodox Church. And a lot of that was laying down the foundation for what would eventually become this conflict. We've seen, the Canadian government, they sanctioned Patriarch Kirill. What is the Russian Orthodox Patriarch? What does he have to do with any of this? Because they say he's supportive of Putin. Well, I mean, he's the Russian Orthodox Patriarch. What do you want him to be? Yeah, what do you expect him to be? You had much of the Orthodox Church fighting against each other, at odds with each other, because many political forces were trying to break up the Orthodox faith in Ukraine and move it away from the Russian sphere and to create what we would call a heretical Orthodox Church. And you saw a lot of that. And actually that fell apart. They tried, but it crumbled, that church, because the people, whatever their feelings were towards Russia, the people did not want it. They didn't want a heretical church created in the image of Trudeau and Biden and Obama and all these people. They were like, no, this is, our church has hundreds and hundreds of years of history, which is connected to the patriarchy in Moscow and in Russia. That's just the way it is. And so, you saw a lot of movement being made in Ukraine to destabilize Orthodoxy and the connection between Russia and Ukraine, which was bound by Orthodoxy. That's the thing. They understood where to attack. They understood that if we're going to attack and we're going to get these countries to hate each other and to be at war with each other, we're going to have to strike right at the heart. And they knew that the heart was the religion that bound these societies together. And they did that.
What is the dominant religion in Albania? Are they a Muslim country or what are they? Orthodox?
Oh, Albania. It's that's a very good question. It's Islam. It's Muslim. Albania, but there is sprinkles of Christianity there. But it is, in essence, if I'm not mistaken, we are looking at a Muslim, but not a strict type of Islam.
Okay. I have a very good friend, internet friend anyway. He's Albanian. He's got a very strong pride for his heritage, and there's a military hero. I don't know, you probably know him better than I do. I can't remember what his name is, but they sort of glorify this military hero guy. And Mother Teresa, I don't know if you love and admire Mother Teresa, but she's Albanian. When I was living in northern Greece, a young Albanian boy broke into our home and was trying to rob us. Barefoot little guy. Okay. And we just scared him off, but it's kind of cute. But the whole thing about immigration and racism, all these sorts of things. I was very aware of the prejudice against the Albanians when I lived in Greece.
There was. There still is.
90s. This was the 90s. There still is.
There still is. But I would say whatever Albanians when they in the 90s when they immigrated to Greece, I would say that now they're much more integrated into society, and I would say that many of them are indistinguishable from Greeks, say, they've had kids and those kids have grown up in the Greek schools and they've taken on many of the Greek customs.
What about the Turks? Is it still hostile relations or pretty friendly or what?
Yeah, things are very bad with the Turks right now. Yeah. Because interestingly enough, the Turks are now more aligned, or at least they're floating towards an alignment with Russia and with the East.
Isn't that good?
For Turkey, yeah. Not for Greece, because Greece has floated more Western.
Yeah, but shouldn't Greece go east and then just join with Turkey and Russia?
Well, I've always taken the standpoint that ideologically, Greeks have much more in common with Russians than we do with most other European nations. Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Even our architecture, even our streets,
even your language.
Our language, everything. There's not very, very European. There's not much European about it, to be quite honest. I walk the streets every day. There's not much Europe in Athens. It doesn't mean that it's not located in Europe or it hasn't had an influence in Europe. But, you walk around in Athens and then you go to, I don't know, Vienna or something like that. And there's nothing. But when I go to Moscow or even, I bet you, even if you went to Istanbul as well, you would probably be like, this is more closely aligned with,
I see,
with what it looks like in Athens in a way, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But Greece is definitely becoming more Western, neoliberal, secular. That's where the government is trying to align Greece.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's unpatriotic of me to be sort of tentatively cheering for Putin and Russia and anyone who's ostensibly religious, whether it's Christian, Muslim, or Jew at this point, I don't care. It's just like it's better than the godless baby killers running the show and imposing their will on us. Um,
Well, can I just say something there with Russia?
yeah,
For the Russians, what's happening right now is existential for them.
okay.
They understand that their country
It's survival.
wants to be destroyed. Yeah,
Yeah.
they understand it. They understand that the West, they want to go into Russia. They want to take them of their resources. They want to balkanize the entire Russian Federation, break it up into a million different pieces. And they understand that they want to destroy their religion. Here's the thing with Russians. They've already been through that. They've been through that. They've had orthodoxy banned. They've had to have liturgy in basements or hidden away. They've already done this experiment. They don't want any part of it.
Hmm.
They did it for 70 years. It didn't work. They don't want to go back.
Yeah.
They don't want to go back to that.
And they have a lot of spirit.
Yeah, 4 churches a day are built, from what I understand, in Russia now. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
That's what I mean. They're not going to go. This is what people need to understand in the West. Even if you're atheist or you're secular, for the Russians, even if you're Russian and you're atheist and you're secular, the Russians, though, don't want to go back to how it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. Most of them. I mean, there's still people that may romanticize it. That's fine. But for the most part, the Russians are comfortable and happy on the trajectory that they find themselves on.
Ironically, our freedom, once we've tasted the freedom of Christ, we don't want to taste the freedom of the corporations and the governments, the godless governments.
And why would you want? Yeah, and why would you want? I mean, when I walk around, like in Thessaloniki, when I walked around Thessaloniki, there are beautiful churches there. Why wouldn't you want to show these churches?
It's amazing.
Beautiful churches. The same thing in Russia. You walk around the streets of St. Petersburg or Moscow. I mean, these are beautiful structures. I mean, people built these things. Man built these things. Sometimes it took them decades, centuries to build these. Sometimes these structures were destroyed in war and they had to rebuild. But I mean, it's, you see the spirit of man when you see these structures, and then when you walk inside them, and it's incredible that the frescoes and the paintings and all of these things that are inside the church. This came from the mind of man, of people. They thought up these things. They were inspired.
Yeah.
They were so inspired by the Spirit that they created these beautiful structures. We don't build beautiful structures in the West anymore. We don't build beauty.
Well,
it's not in our cinema. It's not in our music. It's not in our architecture. It's not.
Just think of the Super Bowl halftime show with half-naked women twerking, and this is the religion of Satanism. Are you interested? I'm not. It's empty. It's hollow. Like the pornography, it does not feed your soul, period. It does not feed your soul. When are we going to figure this out? When are men going to figure out that pornography is effeminizing them? It's making them impotent. It's destroying their families. When are men in the West going to realize that the cruel slavery of the devil is not where it's at? When are the men of the West going to realize that? Because the man is supposed to be the leader in a certain sense of the family, and the man in the West is, I don't know if you've noticed, but the man in the West is effeminized, and we've got these so-called trans whatever, and even in high positions in government in the West, and it's nauseating. No disrespect to these men who are confused and mentally ill. God loves them. Christ died for each and every one of them, and I hope to see them in heaven. But we are in deep, deep trouble when it comes to the family, and it all starts with the man, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the Christian perspective, and we need help. And I look to the east, and I see Putin. He seems like a manly man, and I see a lot of manly men in Russia and in the east generally. Am I wrong?
Well, no, you know, we've got many interviews of Putin where they've asked him about these things, and for example, with children, when Russia was going to host the Sochi Olympics, and they were asking him about the certain laws with regards to LGBTQ stuff and how Russia has certain laws in place. But Putin clarified that in an interview, and he said, "Look, these laws are about just sexuality in general." And he said something very interesting. He said, we ban any type of pornographic or sexually explicit images in the public sphere because for us Russians, we just want to let children grow up and be children.
Wow.
We don't want them exposed to any of these things. Let them grow up, let them find their own path, let them be with their family. I mean, he's on record as saying this, but you see the media in the West, they'll never print this. They'll just say, oh, he passed a law against this group. That's not the case. He wants to keep sexuality out of the development of children until they reach a mature age. And that's what, and he's on record as saying that. He says it. I just want the children to grow up as children. I just want them to grow up normal.
Wow.
We've lost a lot of that. Actually, we've lost all of it in the West. Whatever happened, I remember growing up in the US and it was very normal. And that's why I love America and I thank America for my childhood. You know,
Which
to
state?
me, I grew up in New York and Virginia.
Okay.
And to me, that was an amazing childhood. And the United States taught me so many great values, but it was a community, and and everyone was together. Everyone took care of each other. You know, the neighbors would, if my parents couldn't take me to school or something or walk me to school, the neighbors were happy to do it. And you know, everyone was taking care of each other, and you know, people were, even though there were people from different countries and races and religions, everyone respected and to a certain extent loved one another. And that was our neighborhood. I remember that was my neighborhood in New York, you know, Flushing, Queens, but we were all friends and buddies, and we would get into fights, and then we'd make up, and we learned how to play sports together, and we learned how to grow up together, and social skills and all of these things. That's what the U.S., that's what I remember America to be. I don't know what it is now. To me, it's very foreign at times. I mean, I know there's probably neighborhoods and communities which are like that. But what I see on the news or on TV or on the internet, to me, is very foreign. It's not the America that I know.
Which decade did you grow up in?
I grew up in the 80s and the 90s.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my wife has always loved the 80s. She grew up in the 80s, and she just loves the 80s, especially now, you know, since things have taken a dark turn in the West over the past few years, and there's that reminiscence and that sentimentality for the 80s. Now it has its own dark underbelly, which you need to dig and see underneath the facade. But
for the most part, it was a creative time as well. I mean, it was, and for the most part, if you compare the 80s and the 90s to today, I mean, I think people who grew up in the 80s would just be like, I don't understand what the hell's going on now.
What is this?
Yeah, what is this? Yeah.
It's sad. Do you have another 5-10 minutes for me or no?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, yeah.
What do you think about Judaism in general as a religion? Like the Jewish people prophesied the coming of the Messiah. That's obviously very important. Jesus was Jewish. Mary was Jewish. All of the apostles were Jewish. So from that perspective, what do you think of Judaism? I think I know the answer. And then from the right-wing conspiracy theory, all the Jews today are evil, they're running the banks, they're satanic, all these sorts of things. I happen to believe that Judaism was the one true religion before the Messiah came, but then all the Jews who rejected the Messiah obviously created a false Judaism today. That's my perspective, but I believe also Romans 11, all of the Jews will come in at the end, all of the Jews will be saved at the end. We are the younger brother that's usurped the elder brother, the Jews. There's also more to salvation history than the Jews, the chosen people. There's a history of the church before the Jews, believe it or not. So oftentimes we lose sight of that, especially the Jews lose sight of that. But it's all about Christ and the Messiah. The Messiah came, so that's kind of game over for every sect of Judaism today. Just reflect a little bit on those ideas that I threw up there.
That's two of my very best friends in college were Jewish. So I mean, I don't, the politics and the religion, I try to separate it because I know a lot of people, and I do that for every country in a way, as best as you can. Sometimes it's very difficult to separate politics and religions for certain countries. But I really don't have anything to comment on that, to be honest. I mean, I don't have any. I don't believe in the whole this group or that group. I know a lot of people are going to probably get upset with this. I don't believe that there's a group that controls everything, full spectrum. I just don't. I mean, even the WEF, this group, I believe there's certain groups that control or have certain interests which are very powerful, and sometimes various powerful groups, they find common interests together. So, like the super institutions like the EU definitely find common interests with the WEF, and they definitely find common interests with the deep state and the neocons in the US. So I think absolutely there's some groups that find common interest. But I think as far as people, I live in Cyprus, where 200 miles from Israel, or 100 miles from Israel. So for us, it's, we have a very good relationship with Israel. As we have a very good relationship with many Muslim and Arab countries as well, because I don't think we harp on that stuff too much. I think once again that it seems to me like a lot of that is a political Western construct.
Yeah.
I've seen all of these different societies get along perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. And I remember walking in Thessaloniki. Thessaloniki is actually a city which has roots not only in Christianity but also in Islam and in Judaism as well. And those structures were built side by side, and there are always problems in history. In history, you're always going to have wars and you're always going to have issues. But for the most part, I don't think we should dwell or harp on that too much from a political perspective. Now, people have different beliefs. That's fine. I respect all beliefs, but I get very nervous when we say that this one group or country controls everything.
Yeah, it does seem very demonic to me when someone's obsessed with the Jews running the world and these sorts of things. It seems demonic to me. All of the fanatical conspiracy theories. I'm not saying there's not truth in every conspiracy theory, because there's obviously a lot of truth in every myth, fable, story, lie. There's a lot of truth in every lie. If it's a complex lie. If it's a simple lie, like black is white, there's no truth in that. But these are very complex stories about these conspiracies about who's running the world and these sorts of things. But I think it is very demonic.
Yeah, but exactly. I think what we're seeing is there is a group of people, maybe 5,000-10,000 people in the world, maybe 20. It's not a very big group, but it's a group of people that have a lot of money, but more importantly, have an enormous amount of power. Now, sometimes their interests align, sometimes they don't. I think now we're at a point in history where their interests do align. Maybe by chance, maybe by design, I don't know, but their interests do align. And this group of 20,000 people, they want to stick it to the rest of us. And the rest of us is Christians, without a doubt, Jews, without a doubt, Muslim, without a doubt, atheists. These people, they don't think like in the way that we perceive the world. They think differently. They just think of us as
Numbers.
cattle, numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they have to use religion to divide us, they'll use religion. If they have to use race, they'll use race. If they have to use something else, they'll use something else. They don't care because they're not stuck on that.
Yeah.
How can we divide these people? How can we control these people? What are the levers that we can push to control them, to dumb them down, to emasculate them, to defeminize them, whatever it is? Can we use science? Can we use chemicals? Can we use religion? Can we use race? They don't care.
Yeah.
What they're looking at is the goal, their end goal of what they want this world to be. And what they want this world to be is what you said. They want a demonic type of world. That's what they want. They want a world where they're on top and everyone else is set and stuck on the bottom. And they want to dictate everything top down. And people are rebelling against that in all kinds of countries all around the world. And that's where we are today. And people say, what's a globalist? I say, look, these people you're looking at 20,000 people, give or take. That's it. But these are 20,000 people with an enormous amount of power, unfathomable to us. We can't get in their heads because we just can't imagine what it must be like to be above the law and to have this amount of money and power like these people have. It's something that we can't relate to because it's completely foreign to us. It's alien, completely alien.
I often think about a huge auditorium, like, for example, America's Got Talent, full of a huge audience of people who are just dying to be entertained. It might be singing, it might be dancing, it might be an illusionist, magician, who's going to wow them, mesmerize them, hypnotize them, and trick them, basically. And then they all applaud and they're all amazed. How did they do that? It's amazing, it's amazing, it's amazing. Well, I think it's the same thing with this 20,000 of elite, so-called elites or whatever they are. They're at a different level. They're operating at a different level, and they have tricks, and these tricks work. They don't use the tricks that don't work. They use the tricks that work, right? It's a very pragmatic religion, Satanism. It's very pragmatic. This works. That's what we're going to do. Like you said, whatever works, we can kill the food supply, whatever it is. Yeah. It's just very basic. But the funny thing is that at the bottom of the pyramid, a lot of enablers are just applauding, and they just can't wait for the next entertaining move by these hypnotists and these magicians. And it's just so amazing. And they're just in awe, and they sort of put on a pedestal their enemy. Really, it's the enemy of their soul, because they're gonna, if the enemy has his way, we'll end up in hell for all eternity. So it's misguided, to put it mildly. It's misguided to applaud these people or to glorify them. But I really do see it as a sort of a magic trick, and it's just at such a big scale, like you said, we can't even see it if we wanted to see it, and it's designed in such a way that they've thought of the contingencies. They have a plan B, they have a plan C, they have a plan D, they have a plan E, and no, they're not in control. God's in control. But God gives them a certain amount of control. He's giving them rope to hang themselves with. But just don't, let's not join in with the bad guys. It's a very basic message that I give on my podcast. Just be a good guy. Don't be a bad guy. And yeah, you're going to suffer. But it's better to suffer now than later, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think of that hypnotist magic trick analogy? Does it work?
I think you're 100% spot on. 100% spot on. Yeah, and it's like you said, they have tools at their disposal that we can't even begin to comprehend the lives that these people live. And that's the truth. It's something that we can't comprehend, because they operate at a level that is outside of our everyday world. They just do. There is no law for them. They don't have to worry about money. They don't have to worry about anything. That what they're obsessed with is earthly control. That's what they're obsessed with. That's why all of these guys, they live to 90 or 95 or 100, Soros types that live forever, it seems, because they don't want to move on to the next phase.
Mm.
They understand that here they are. This is the best it's going to get.
Ooh, it's sad. It's so sad. We have to pray for these people. It's such a poverty. I mean, Mother Teresa said it best when she said the poorest people on earth are the rich people in the West. They're the poorest people she's ever met. The rich Westerners. Why? Because they're killing their young. They're killing their young in the womb. It's pathetic. It's a spiritual poverty. And, I think about Lazarus and the rich man and in the afterlife. And the rich man was begging, well, can you at least save my brothers and send me back, because they'll convert. If they see someone raised from the dead, they'll convert. But no, I mean, if they have Moses and the prophets, if they won't listen to Moses, they're not going to listen even to if you come back from the dead. So it's tragic. It's tragic to think about even one person suffering in hell, but it's a reality, and that's the sobering reality that allows you and me, and even I would say the true God-fearing Muslims and Jews and anyone else who fears the supreme creator, that it allows us to have perspective on messy things like politics, right?
Look, power is a very. I'm scared to death of power and sometimes money. It's very.
It's heavy.
It's very corrupting. Yeah, it's very tempting. It's very corrupting.
Yeah.
I mean, power especially is very, very corrupt. Money brings power.
Yeah.
That's why even when we get a little bit of power, like when I get a little bit of power, sometimes I have to say, okay, just take a step back. And the power that I get is minuscule compared to what some of these guys, these Soros types have. Yeah. This is stuff that to us we just can't fathom. What it must be like for them to have such power over the world, but that is an illusion as well. Their time. It's fleeting, exactly, but they don't. They're scared to death of it fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
They know it too. That's why you have all the transhumanism and all of these other things, and blood transfusions to keep me alive another 5 or 10 years or whatever they need to do. This obsession with life here. As a society, we have become scared of, and it's a scary thing, of death.
Yeah,
and it is a scary thing, but. It didn't used to be like that. People would accept it. And I think people would accept it because people understood that it's not the end.
Yeah. I am going to let you go soon, but I wanted to get your perspective. You're a very humble man, by the way. I want to thank you for being so humble. I mean, you accepted to come on my show, even though you don't know me, and you're just a down-to-earth, very humble man. I appreciate that. I thank God for you. But I want to talk just a little bit about the Native situation. We've got Indigenous peoples all over the world, but even here in Canada, we have the Native people, and the Pope recently came and apologized in some sort of way for the abuses that I'm sure there were abuses. I don't know exactly what form they took. There are always abuses in this fallen world. Even if you're a religious person, you still are abusing your freedom. That's just the way it is in this fallen world. So, I can appreciate the apology to a certain extent. I don't know if it was misguided in other ways. But in any case, there is this situation where we have an image of the noble savage, the people living in contact with the land in a very primitive way. And there's a tendency to romanticize the noble savage and the indigenous peoples, and to romanticize all of that. And I'm prone to that, and my wife is prone to that. She loves the native peoples and the idea of it, not maybe realizing or wanting to realize that they are also selfish, violent people when push comes to shove, right? As all humans can be. but we can glorify and romanticize this noble savage and the simplicity of the way of life and the low carbon footprint. Let's be honest, the low carbon footprint of the the native peoples who are living in harmony, really are living in harmony with Mother Earth. Let's face it, it is a reality. These people are not flying around on jets. These people are living a very low carbon footprint. Can you talk about the climate change, religion, and the reverence for the native peoples, and then that flip side of the coin that I am alluding to here, which is that yes, they are noble people made in the image of God, and they do have a simple way of life, and there is wisdom to be gleaned there, and they are living in balance with nature for the most part, more than we are in the West, where we really are destroying the quality of air and water in many instances with our industry and all these sorts of things. Can you talk about that from your perspective, because you know a lot about geopolitics and what's it mean?
I mean, I could talk more to the climate change
Yeah.
stuff, even though I'm not an expert on that either. But I can talk about it from a political perspective.
Well, just your own
And
hunch. Like, are you turned off by the climate change stuff, or is it exaggerated, or is it?
look, my own hunch is that much of it is once again about power and centralization. I mean, I don't think there's a desire from all of these top level climate guys and gals, all these people that are pushing this on everybody. I don't think there really is that desire to fix the climate. I don't think that's what bothers them. I think it's an excellent vehicle to obtain, once again, more power and control. If you're focused more on the climate and the fear of the climate, then I think you're going to obviously be less focused on the spirit, on the humanity, and on God. Because our mind can only be focused on so many things at one time. And so if this is your big concern, I'm not saying it's not a concern. I'm just saying if this is your big concern, then yeah, you're going to probably forget about the other things. And I think they realize that, and even more so, they realize that this is an excellent mechanism to obtain more control over society. These renewable companies and eliminating fossil fuels and all of these things, to me, is just a way to reconfigure the world so that it's more centralized under their control. That's what it is. It's a simple example is me getting in a car that uses petrol and driving anywhere I want, and no one is really controlling me. I can go wherever I want. I can drive from here to wherever. No problem. There's not going to be any control over me. There's no computer in my car, none of that stuff. But these new vehicles, everything's centralized somewhere. They can turn off the switch and they can stop your car at any moment, right? And you need and you have the whole electricity and this whole computer on your dashboard and everything like that. To me, it's a very simple example. And once again, I'm not saying that electric cars are bad or good. I'm just saying I look at stuff like that and I say, that was freedom. I could just get in my car and just go. And it was me. It was, I've got the stick shift. I'm working the pedals, the clutch. I mean, I'm alive. And now you have this, let me press a button. Okay, it's easy and convenient, but someone somewhere is controlling all of that. It's not me. And I think that's what they see in the climate agenda and the renewable agenda. I think they see a way to take more control onto themselves. And I think you're looking at a power elite that saw the old way of doing things, which was the oil barons. That was one type of elite class, and they're saying, you know what, their day is over. Now it's our time, but we're going to do it. We're going to crank it up a notch because we're going to have solar and wind and electric vehicles, and we're going to have the mobile phones, and we're going to have the information technology and the search engines. So these oil barons, yeah, they may have had the petrol cars, yeah, they may have had I don't know, say the steam engine or whatever they had, right? They were doing all of these things, and that was interesting. They had some control of society, just a little bit. What we're going to have, I mean, it's just full spectrum domination. We're going to know every move you make. We got you on GPS from your phone to your car to wherever you go, to the plane that you get on. We've got it all locked down. We know what you're typing into Google search. We know the words that you're posting on social media. So we're taking it to a different level. And we're going to want your electric home too. We want your home to be completely smart grid, smart homes, right? The smart homes are going to make us dumb. I don't want my home to be smart. I want to be able to fix stuff. I want it to be at a low level so I can, use my hands. And I mean, that's also godly in a way. I mean, that's, God gave us these things. God gave us the ability to fix stuff and to work through things. We're giving that away. We're giving away our humanity.
Yeah.
We really are. And we're giving it away to, we don't know who. A bunch of people that sit in some central office, some Tesla central office that's controlling, where we go and what we do, and is seeing our car move on the map. And they're saying, okay, there's Alex. He's over there now. Okay, I see him. To me, that's what this climate change agenda is really about. You really want to take care of the environment. I tell everybody, even in Greece, a lot of people go, oh, I'm an environmentalist. And then they take their cigarette and they throw it on the floor, on the ground as they're walking, but they're an environmentalist. Take care of your community, of your neighbor.
Yeah.
Love thy neighbor. Take care of your neighbor. Take care of your street. Take care of your town, your village, your city. And then think about everything else. When Leonardo DiCaprio stops flying on a private jet, then maybe I'll take him seriously. But until then, I don't want to hear it from him or Gates or any of these guys.
What do you think of little Greta?
I feel bad for her. We talked about childhood. I feel like she's lost her childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get your childhood back.
No.
All of these children that are being led astray and they're being children that are being, fearful of the environment, to me, that's a sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're robbing them of their happiness by instilling this fear that everything's going to collapse and everything's going to fall apart. Maybe in 50 years or 100 years it will. I don't know. Only God knows.
Yeah. Only
God knows what's in store for us 50, 100, 1,000 years from now.
Yeah. Or 2 minutes from now.
Yeah, or 2 minutes from now.
You've seen those videos of people collapsing, strong athletes collapsing. We don't know what the next minute holds.
Look, there's a lot of hubris of man, the hubris of man, the ego of man to believe that they can control all these things. Now, maybe men can make a difference. Sure, men can do some great things, but we need to show more humility in this world. And I think that humility starts once again at home. We talked about the house and the home, the community, the house, the home. To me, that's my climate.
Yeah.
I keep things clean. I make sure to take care of things around me. These are things that I can control.
Yeah.
The other stuff, I can't control it.
The woke media would say that anyone who speaks out against the climate change or whatever they're calling it, they would want to somehow imply that there's a human being, a conservative, right wing, or whatever human being that would prefer dirty water to clean water and dirty air to clean air. But it's not the case. Like, we all want clean air, we all want clean water, and we all acknowledge, it's basic common sense. If you're dumping chemicals into the river, the people that live downstream, they're gonna suffer. I mean, it's sad but true, and we all want less of that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
the normal
who doesn't want to drink clean water?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Who doesn't want a clean environment?
So
It's
it's a
ridiculous.
bit ridiculous to characterize the enemies of the climate change agenda
Yeah,
as being enemies of the environment. Yeah.
it's the same climate change guys in power, though, that are destroying Libya and destroying Syria and destroyed Iraq. Same guys. There's no difference. These are the same people that are lecturing us about climate.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you, have you done just a napkin calculation of the environmental impact of all the new green technologies? Like, is it a net improvement, or is it is it worse than the old school technologies?
Look at what they're doing today with in the EU with Russian gas and oil. And because they've decided to sanction Russian gas and oil, they're trying to sanction Russian gas and oil. They've now had to destroy their own environment. Greece had to open up its coal factories, had to reopen the coal factories. And then they're going to lecture us about environment. That's how you know that they don't care
Mm,
about the environment. What they care about is they want to control the resources, and renewables gives them, it's a shortcut. It's like I can hopscotch over oil and
uh,
gas and all of these old traditional companies. I can just
right,
bypass them
right.
and just get to controlling solar. So let me just get them out of the way
Yeah.
and then let me control everybody. And of course, I'm going to be a much better oligarch than those guys, right? I'm going to be a benevolent ruler of the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
they think, though. They think I'm going to be a benevolent ruler. I'm not going to be like, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the, Carnegies, these old school guys. Nuh-uh. I'm going to be
They
benevolent. I'm
weren't
going to be loving to all the people.
they weren't enlightened as we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Amazing.
what climate change is. It's people, like, a simple way to look at the elite and their obsession with climate change. It's just a shortcut for them to get control of our resources. That's all it is.
So, I mean, you and I know there's another better world after death, if God willing we make it to heaven. But there is a lot of fear that there might be an economic collapse, that sort of the whole house of cards comes crumbling down. I'm not talking about an individual country here or there going through rough times. I'm talking about a complete economic collapse. I've got a friend who's a libertarian and he's worried about that. I'm not worried about it, but I'm curious what you think, that how fragile is the house of cards in terms of technology, food supply chain? How fragile is that in your estimation?
Very, very, and I think now for the West, it's irreversible
The damage is
for
done.
the most part. Yeah, I think the damage is done.
So starvation is coming to
I,
the West.
I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's starvation, or I don't know if it's going to be something like that. But we are going to see a paradigm shift, and we are going to see a collapse in general of empire and of the collective West. I mean, it's here. It's arrived, and it's arrived because of multiple factors. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the sanctioning of Russia,
Okay.
cutting off Russia. Because what Russia was the engine that powered the collective West, and they'll never admit that because their narrative is that Russia was a gas station masquerading as a country, and that's wrong. That's completely. This is why I say humility is important and hubris is devastating. They believed that Russia was nothing more than this gas station. But what they fail to understand is that Russia provides a full spectrum of resources that we need to just live a basic life. Metals, minerals, fertilizer, food, gas, oil. Russia is top in all of those categories. Doesn't take much. Look at a map. Look at how big it is. Doesn't take much to understand that this massive landmass is rich in many of the things that we need in our daily lives. And the deal was, over the past 50 years, let's say, ballpark, the deal was, Russia, you're going to provide us with these things, and we're going to build our industry, and we're going to prosper, and you're going to get compensated for this, and we're going to build the Volkswagens and the BMWs and everything else and the Siemens and all these big companies, and everything will be good. And we're going to have food and farms. It's fine. But they threw that out the window this year. And I think that's the straw. And we had other things that happened, which we can't name on YouTube, but that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's why the collapse now is inevitable.
I stopped a cop on the street, a traffic cop, and I just asked him about the seasonal illness that's been going around the past 3 years, and he said, "Oh no, that's over." He said, "Now it's Russia, Ukraine." So it's kind of like in his mind, unless he was being silly and just making a joke, but I don't think so. In his mind, it's like we have this chapter in world affairs, and we've changed now. This is the program now. It was just cut and dry for him, which is mind-boggling, because that's the perspective that all the right-wing conspiracy theorists have on BitChute. Like my wife likes watching those. That's exactly what they would say. But this is like a status quo member of society, pillar of society cop. And I don't know if you're aware of what's been happening in Canada with the truckers' protest in Ottawa and these sorts of things. And
Yes.
there's a public inquiry taking place, which by law has to take place after the Emergencies Act is implemented and sort of thing. But there's, when it comes to the establishment and the police and the politicians and how that all works together, you would know better than I would how that all hangs together. But I mean, if you're a cop and you're telling me like we've changed focus like on a dime, that has implications. Like you have to think about what is going on.
Keep people in fear, keep them hysterical, keep them worried. Yeah.
And we can just move on like nothing happened. I hope so. I mean, I don't know what to hope for anymore, other than just mass conversions of all the.
Well, they're obviously, the people that are running the collective West are obviously on a crash course. That's where they're heading. They've lost their senses. One decision is worse than the next.
Oh, it's spiraling.
Yeah, it's spiraling. It's each decision they're making is
it's desperate at this point.
It's consecutively worse than the previous.
Okay.
And they can't turn it back. They can't put a pause in it. They can't stop. They're just driving right over the cliff, and that's exactly where they're taking us. If not already over the cliff. I mean, you can look at countries like the UK, for example, or Germany.
Yeah,
they're already over the cliff, and they're on the way down now. And there's nothing anyone can do about it. There are no leaders anymore. There's there are no resources anymore. They have no access to resources or commodities. They're the ones that have isolated themselves from the world. They say that Russia's isolated, or these countries. No, it's the reverse. The West has isolated itself deliberately. They've isolated themselves from everybody else, from the entire 80% of the planet. And the 80% of the planet is now waking up, and they're saying, this is our chance to break free from this system. Finally, we can be out of this system. And that's why I'm saying all these leaders, the Trudeaus, they don't have a reverse gear.
Full steam
They don't
ahead.
have it.
Full steam ahead.
It's just full steam ahead. One bad decision after another, after another, after another. They have no reverse gear. And there's no one around them to tell them, stop. Someone should just tell Trudeau, just pause it. Just put a pause for 6 months. Don't do anything. Don't make a decision. Don't make any decision at all. Zero. Just put a pause in it so everyone can calm down. They can't do it.
My friend worked on a movie set, a film set with Trudeau, because Trudeau is an aspiring actor. And I mean, I don't want to disparage Trudeau's character. He's a creature of God. But everyone disliked him on the film set, and he was a bad actor, and a bad actor in the literal sense, like he's trying to act and he's not good at acting. Um, and they just didn't like him. Like, I mean, and like, there's no accounting for taste and chemistry. It's a very personal thing, but whatever. People didn't like him, and my friend feels sorry for him. He thinks that this guy's a loser, and he's just a puppet, and he's just a loser. Like, I mean, it's just sad. It's just really sad. The other day, Trudeau made a joke. I don't know if you saw it, about like, oh, well, my enemies say that the liberal media supports me too much for no good reason. But they do have a good reason. That's the 16 million I give them every year, whatever it was. Like, he thought that was funny. And like, I mean, it wasn't funny. It's not funny.
They don't have all these people in power. They seem like they've gone through something traumatic in their lives, and they lack the social skills and the empathy to understand the world around them. And they're making the decisions, or at least they're the people that are being.
They're the channel for those decisions.
They're the channel to make those decisions, and because they're probably forces that are above them that are telling them to make decisions. These people, they don't understand the consequences of their actions, or the consequences of these decisions. They have no understanding that if I do A, it's going to lead to B. They just can't comprehend it. If I put truckers in prison, well, then number one, it's not right. What I'm doing is not correct. We should allow people to protest, or we should allow a peaceful protest as to what happened in Canada. But they can't understand that their decisions down the road are going to have terrible, destructive consequences for the country in general. They can't think that far because they don't have that capability. They just don't have it.
Was there a time, maybe I'm naive, but I'm romanticizing the past, and I'm thinking to myself, there was probably a time in some country somewhere, probably here in Canada, the US, wherever, just normal Western Christendom, there was probably a time, correct me if I'm wrong, where the people chose a reluctant leader to go and represent them in the government. And this is a guy, he's a good guy, we know him, he's got principles. We're going to send him to represent our community, and then the other community sends their best guy, and then they make decisions about resources and how they're going to spend the tax money and these sorts of things. And is that the way politics used to be, or am I just naive to think that it was ever that pure and wholesome?
No, I think the West and the United States and Canada, absolutely, they had great leaders in the past.
With representative
government. Yeah, absolutely. Canada used to be the best country when it came to diplomacy, especially foreign policy and diplomacy. It was always the Canadian diplomats that would negotiate. It was always the Canadian diplomats that would be called on to find peaceful solutions to various conflicts around the world. That's all gone now. That's all gone. Now Canada is on the same exact course as all the other countries in the collective West, which is escalate war, weapons, conflict, just continue to move in that direction. There's no diplomacy. There's no
nuance.
There's no understanding the craft of foreign policy anymore.
No statesmanship.
There's none of that. That's gone. But yeah, the West used to have tons of good leaders. Absolutely. I'm not saying as people, who knows? I don't know if they were good. And I'm not saying there wasn't wars either.
Yeah.
But at least they were statesmen. They were leaders. They had a position on certain things. They were able to make tough decisions.
Yeah, well, the Catholic principle of subsidiarity, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or if you have such a thing in the Orthodox teachings, but it's about power being allowed to flow down to the smaller levels. So if a federal power can be delegated to provincial to municipal, whatever, down to the individual even. So in the family, like the father can be the head of the family, and the mother can raise the children, and the children don't run the home. Sorry, they don't. The children are not in control. They don't decide. It's the parents, and there's that whole trickle down of power, and the people that have a higher level of power, like a federal prime minister or president or whatever, he's got very well defined but limited powers. And I think that's the way that our constitutions are designed, with that subsidiarity built in, but we've corrupted it, we've lost sight of it, and it's just, sounds to me like you're saying it's sort of a thing of the past now. Is that right?
Well, it is a thing of the past. It is. I mean, now the powers of our leaders are infinite, it seems.
Hmm.
That's how it seems. I mean, they rule by fiat. I mean,
Fiat.
they do whatever they want. Executive order for this, executive order for that. I can do whatever I want
So
here and there.
Satan wasn't lying when he said, "You shall be like gods if you eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil."
Yeah, I mean, it's that is where the West. Yeah, that is where the West. Today, the European Union is trying to figure out a way to seize Russian assets, and they're saying it outright. They're not hiding it. The leader of the EU said, "We a legal way to seize these assets." What I'm saying is that they're not even hiding their wickedness anymore.
It's pathetic.
It's out there. It's out there for the world to see it, and they're fine with it.
So the BRICS thing, is that a real thing with Brazil, and I think South Africa is involved in
Yes.
that? Is that a real thing?
Yes.
Is it India is in that?
Yes, it's a real thing. It's not such a it's not like NATO
It's not
or an alliance
formalized
like
yet.
along. Yeah, it's not so it's formalized, but it's a very loose association of countries. And there's no once again there's no centralization of this is what you have to do
Right.
in order to be part of this group. You have to act like this and be like this, otherwise you don't get in. It's not like that. It's a very loose association of countries with a common interest and goal.
Is it a populist upswelling or something?
It's more of a. I mean, it's populist in the standpoint of as Brazil, I'm not going to dictate to India how they should.
Okay, it's
Run their
nationalist in
country.
that. Nationalist in that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm not here to pass judgment on you, and you're not here to pass judgment. I mean, as BRICS, what we're looking for this common economic goal or this common foreign policy goal, and it's very broad. It's not they're not sitting there micromanaging and telling
Right.
the other country
But it's
how they need to be.
but it's an opportunity for survival, basically, right? Like, hey, we can
Yeah.
actually have an economy, and we don't need to play ball with these morons, right?
It's a huge opportunity. Actually, it is. I would say right now, BRICS and the other organizations that are springing up, they are now the dominant opportunities. They are the main players now.
Mm.
NATO and all of these other organizations and institutions, these are becoming things of the past. And people want out of these organizations. Turkey is interested now in the SCO and in BRICS, and Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
The U.S. is number one ally.
Wow.
They're now saying we want into BRICS
Wow.
because they see that this is a place where I can engage in dialogue. We have common interests, but they don't dictate to me
Right.
how my country should be run.
What is it true that South Africa is involved in that?
Yes.
Interesting. We've been watching a lot of South African TV recently. We really love the accent, and the people seem based. I'm sure they've got a lot of problems. I'm not saying they don't have problems or crime and whatnot. By the way, what is the accent of the other Alex? It's a strange accent he has.
British.
Oh, is he?
Yes, he's in London. Yeah, he's based in London.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
He has never lived in Greece.
He was in Greece as a child,
Okay.
and then he moved to the UK.
Do you have any personal experience with South Africa as a country, the people or the culture?
A personal no, but actually that's not true. I do have a cousin and his family that they moved to South Africa at a young age, and they've been living there. And he comes to Cyprus and visits often. There's actually a lot of Cypriots that moved to South Africa, and there's also a very strong South African community here in Cyprus, Greek and Cypriot South African community here in Cyprus. So, I mean, if that counts for having contact with South Africa, then maybe, yeah.
The whole apartheid thing, was that a hot mess? Like, how, just in the Cliff's Notes version, what happened with all the apartheid stuff? What is the overview of that?
I'm probably not the
You
best
don't know?
person to, yeah,
No.
I'm probably not the best person to give an overview of that. I just don't know enough. Yeah, I don't know
You did
enough.
a little scene on a beach. I think you said there was a Scottish guy that had a bar or
Yeah,
something. Was that in Cyprus?
Mackenzie. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mackenzie Beach in
yeah.
Larnaca, Cyprus. It's a true story.
Amazing. My wife liked that story because I'm of Scottish heritage
Yeah,
and
it's
she's
a true
Greek,
story.
and
Yeah. He
this.
moved to Cyprus and he opened up a beach bar, and it was the only game in town. And then all the Cypriots, they would just, instead of the name of the bar, whatever the name was, they would just say, let's just go to Mackenzie's bar and grab a beer. And then some other businesses, some other cafes and bars started to open up, around him. And now the whole area, the whole beach and the whole like province over there, like Cyprus is small, but like the whole area now is just called the Mackenzie area. You want to rent the flat? Oh, you're going to rent the flat in Mackenzie area? Okay. So I mean, he's
Did
he
you
made a
know?
difference.
Did you know there was a sort of there's a club that actually would meet when we lived in England. There was a club that would meet. It was married couples with one Greek and one Scottish member of the couple. It's like a thing where Scottish and Greek they seem to get along. I I mean it works very well in my relationship. Is it something that's on your radar? Are you aware
Yes,
of the connection?
yes. Greek and Scottish, Greek and Irish.
Yeah, yeah.
We have the same temperament,
Okay,
and
okay,
and I would even say, Russian as well,
okay,
and Serbian, because like even though the Russians may seem more not as warm in the beginning, it is the same temperament. Believe me, it
okay.
is the same exact temperament. So Greeks and Scottish and Irish and Greeks, we understand each other because we have that same
Fire.
fire, but also there's a rationality in fire that
Ah,
the one balances the other.
well, speaking of rationality and the Scots, you know about the Scottish Enlightenment. Did you study philosophy in any depth?
I studied it, but I wouldn't say I studied it in I mean at a university level.
Wasn't a
I
passion,
would
no.
say.
It wasn't an
No,
obsession.
no, it was not a
Oh,
passion or an obsession. No.
okay, but you know about the Scottish Enlightenment and
Yes,
all of
of
that.
course.
Whether it's good or
Yes.
bad, that's another question, but there's definitely that intellectual thing.
Yeah, there's exactly that. I think these are the things that can help us, relate
Mm.
these different cultures. That's why you do see that often. This understanding between countries that are far apart, it seems, but
Yeah.
for some reason they just get along really
That's
really
pretty
well.
cool. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. You know, my wife's very proud, as many Greek, I won't say all, but many Greeks are very proud to be Greek. Very, very proud.
Yeah.
Have you seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes.
How
Yes.
many times have you seen it?
They play it on TV here all the time. They rerun it all the time
That's your
here.
excuse for having watched it
Yes.
20
So if
times.
you're
Okay.
bored, you turn it on and you're like, okay, there it is.
Is it still funny? Is it still funny?
um, I still enjoy the movie, and I think there's a lot of truth to that movie. Actually, a lot of truth to that movie.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it exaggerates things, but yeah. And why shouldn't Greeks be proud? I mean, all countries and cultures, you should be proud of where you come from. Absolutely.
Were
There's nothing
you
wrong with
were
that.
you proud of Canada with the truckers movement?
Yes, I was. I think Canadians have a lot to be proud of. A hell of a lot to be proud of. But they're trying to beat that out of them.
Hmm.
And
Trample it
that's
out of them with the horses.
yeah, yeah. That's a terrible thing. Like I said, I remember traveling the Greek islands, and when I was younger, and before Airbnbs and all that stuff, you would get on boats. You didn't know where the boat was going to an island. You're like, okay, let's explore this island. I don't even know where I'm going to stay. But you'd meet people from all around the world. But it was always the Canadians that were the most proud. It seems.
Ah,
They would have like the Canadian patch, the
yeah.
flag, the maple leaf on their backpack or on their hat, and they would always talk about Canada and how awesome it is, and you would be on a 5-hour boat ride and be listening. Oh, that sounds awesome. That sounds cool. I mean, I don't know if that exists today. I don't know. I don't. It would be a shame if this was lost.
Yeah. Well, I was really, really moved to tears by the families, the moms and pops and the kids along the sides of the highways, on the overpasses. Those images just moved me to tears because why? Because they're wholesome, normal people. These are not tin hat wearing fringe minority with unacceptable views. No, these are salt of the earth, wholesome families. Now, are they all Christian? I doubt it, right? We're in Canada, right? But God love them. You know, it's just amazing. It's just amazing to see. And when I see regular, normal people, family, men and women and children, and workers, blue collar workers, whatever, around the world, in love with freedom and truth and justice and just basic values and principles. It's very, very moving. And that's why I don't understand how the left, who used to be all about the worker, the little guy, the people, they're disparaging the people. How did that get flipped on its head?
There is no left anymore. I mean, there's a left, but not in the halls of power. The traditional left, what it means to be a traditional liberal, is over.
Okay.
That's
They've
that
killed
died.
it. The
Yeah, they
people,
killed that.
the people that are progressive today, woke today,
They're not left.
it's not left. It's not
No,
left.
no, no, no. They're neoliberals. They masquerade as left, and
Okay.
I think that's deliberate. I mean, you have this like squad, these progressive people that I believe now, whether they understand it or not. These people, I don't even know if they understand it, but they're not traditional liberals. They have no connection to what it means to be on the left or to be a traditional liberal, a free speech, human rights, traditional liberal. That's not them. They're neoliberals. Once again, they buy into the neoliberal and neocon because it's all one and the same. Globalist dogma. They buy into the globalist dogma. They're part of that ideology. I personally, I don't even like the word progressive.
Okay.
Because I understand what it was meant to be, but I think it's been hijacked as well, and it's been taken on a completely different course. I would prefer if there was a movement in the United States or Canada of people who would just say traditional liberal.
Yeah.
I understand some people don't like the word traditional. Fine, but if we can get back to a traditional liberal, anti-war, human rights, and environment as well, but in a good way, all of these characteristics of what it meant, healthcare,
education,
take care
of the underprivileged.
Yeah, that is a traditional liberal. Let's just get back to that, and the world will be a much better place.
But were you surprised over the past 3 years because of certain events, which will remain unnamed? Are you surprised, like, some people's true colors were revealed, and it's like, oh, this guy, I thought he was like a radical whatever, but turns out he's pretty based. And this person I thought was based, turns out they're complete, like, a shill for the globalists.
Yeah, the masks came off.
Yeah. Was it more in one direction than the other? Like, were you getting a lot more pleasant surprises than disappointments, or more
No, I think I was
disappointments?
disappointed all the way around. But there were some pleasant surprises. No, there were some pleasant surprises, but I think at the end of the day, just kind of confirmed for me that there is no such thing as a traditional liberal anymore. I mean, that's been taken out of society. I mean, they're around, but they're hidden.
Well, like you adhere to those values. I adhere to those values.
Yeah.
Anyone with common sense, I think, adheres to the values that you mentioned, that you enumerated, right? Within moderation, within reason. Like, I mean, obviously there's context and everything else. But like because there's a tendency among my small group of friends to see the left-right dichotomy, and I've always balked against that, because they're all kinds of people that you thought were supposedly left or right or whatever, but they agree on a lot of common sense things, some of them. And there are others on the left and the right that are just, like you said, they're just part of that top-down globalist nightmare. They're enablers for that. Why anyone would enable that, I have no idea. Do you really think that you're going to benefit from your allegiance to these demons? You think you're going to benefit?
Yes. The answer is yes, absolutely yes.
Why? Because they can keep their job, or they can advance their career?
No, different reasons, but yes.
Or you can fit into society without...
Absolutely.
Without
if you grew up as an outcast, you know, think about the hole that may be in your heart. I mean, a lot of people are suffering from loneliness, and they
Yeah,
feel like they're outcasts or they're misunderstood. I can empathize with that. It's a terrible feeling.
yeah.
I don't want people to suffer, and I don't want people to feel like they don't belong in this world. So yeah, even the feeling of loneliness, and this group of people, these globalists, whatever they are, here they are. They're taking me in. I just have to show allegiance. I mean, that's comforting. That's powerful. That's very powerful. You know, no one wants to be alone. No one wants to be with themselves. No one wants to feel like they don't fit in. People want to belong to something. People want to feel like they're 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 doing something constructive, or they're making a difference, or they're going to move up the ladder. They're going to make money. Maybe they're going to get power. Maybe they'll be a big boss man. Who knows? But yeah, absolutely. A lot of people believe that.
You know, it's funny when we think about progressives and all these sorts of things. Not sure if you're familiar with Vancouver, but the whole Western North America thing. There's a vibe with the West, California, that vibe, you know, liberal, whatever. Um, Even though you don't like that word, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Flaky, whatever you want to say. But
Mhm.
in Vancouver, Canada, my wife and I moved there. We're looking for an apartment, and we went to the most progressive, or whatever you want to call it, neighborhood, because everyone told us that's the cool neighborhood, and we saw these posters for apartments, but it said, you know, we're open-minded, and you have to be open-minded, and you can't smoke, you can't drink, you can't eat meat, you can't eat animal products, you can't be like there was literally a big list of what it is to be open-minded, and if you don't meet all of these criteria, you're not open-minded and you're not welcome. Do they
So it
not
sounds
see the
close-minded.
do they not see the irony of this? Do they not see it?
Nope. No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't.
But
They don't.
this was years ago. This was
Yeah.
years ago, and it's sort of the world we live in now. That's kind of dominating here in the West, like here in Canada.
Those are the rules
It's
for them. You want to be in the club? These are the rules.
I believe that you do a clown world little shout out for the clown world
Yeah.
of the day or
Yeah.
something like that. What motivated that? Because I've heard this floating around the clown world. Is it just simply like how ridiculous the world is? Is
Yeah,
that
it
what
just
it
kind of
is?
came about. I just started to do the walking videos, and I've been doing them for a while now, and off and on. And it finally got traction, the format that I use to present the news. And I just saw the ridiculousness of so many stories that I said, this is a clown world. And then people liked it. I said, okay, well, maybe, you know, God knows I have a lot of material to work with. I mean, you know, it's like an abundance of material. So, yeah, this is something I could talk about every day, just how ridiculous the world is becoming, and just kind of highlight that.
What is your relationship with your I don't know if we call them listeners, fans, viewers, the people who follow your work? What's your relationship like? Do you get a lot of emails? Do you respond to your emails? What's happening?
I try. I get a lot of emails. I try to respond to them. I fall behind at times because I just have so much stuff on my plate
But have you
to
built
do.
have you built pen pal relationships with a couple of people where you're constantly
Some people, yeah. I mean, I recognize a lot of people. Absolutely, you know. I mean, I go through the comments. That's not a secret.
yeah.
I read the comments. I try to reply to as many comments, or at least one or two comments if I can. If I have the time, I at least try to reply to some comments. And then after you do enough videos, I mean, I've done thousands of videos on the Duran in
Okay.
my channel. And
Okay.
after you do so many videos, absolutely, you
Patterns? You
recognize
see patterns?
absolutely,
Can
you
you
recognize
recognize a
people.
troll or an antagonistic lunatic?
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, that's easy. And I get a lot. I get a lot of people. I mean, you know, the work that I do, I'm paid by the Kremlin. I'm a Putin shill. Um, you know, I mean, I get that a lot. You get the other ones too. I mean, people criticize you on your looks. They
Yeah,
criticize you on the way you talk.
yeah,
Uh,
everything.
everything. I mean, you're out there and people just bash on you nonstop. Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious. So, I mean, you would think that there'd be some Greek lady out there watching that would send you a little slide into your DMs and say, "Hey, let's go for a coffee," and hasn't happened?
I'll look. I mean, like I said, I
Or do
don't.
you only have men listening? That's a
No, I'm
problem.
never. No, I mean, like I said, in general, I'm a very shy person.
Okay.
Not very shy. I'm moderately shy. Moderately shy. But and that's why I love to do the videos, because for me, it's. I mean, it sounds strange to say it, but for me, it was. It's kind of like God telling me it's okay to just. This is how I'm going to break you out of your bubble,
Right.
and I'm going to force it on you, but I'm going to break you out of your bubble, and it's worked. It's worked,
You're
and it's been a
exposed.
blessing. It's
Yeah.
been an absolute blessing, to just walk around and do videos. It sounds strange, but it's simple. That's what I love about it. It's simple, and that's something that I love, simplicity. But no, I don't have. I mean, living in Greece, it's a very difficult dating environment, and I don't know. I haven't been lucky there, to be honest. I would love to um, to get married and have a family. Sure,
Yeah.
I think that,
Yeah.
to me, I think that's the ultimate.
Yeah.
That is the greatest thing a man can do, is that.
Yeah.
No career, money, all that. The greatest thing a man could do is that.
Yeah. 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 Well,
But
you're not the
it's
only one
hard.
struggling. I know lots of people who are struggling with
Yeah.
that, and I'm married, but I don't have children, which is sad, but that's just the way it is. Um, but a lot of people struggle even to take that first step to meet someone that they like or love or whatever. Like, I mean, I met my wife and I was just, overwhelmed. Like it was just happened, it's just something that happened. And hopefully the same thing will happen to you and all my single friends that are trying to find love. But it's very
Yeah.
mysterious. It's in the hands of God, like you said. And but the whole demographic online can be very toxic with a lot of frustrated young men and a lot of angry men and stuff like that. So you're probably seeing a lot of that. These
The
people.
technology has made it harder, not easier.
Yeah.
You would think it would make it easier, and maybe there was like a time window, like maybe a couple
Golden
of
age,
years with the
golden
day
age.
where it was easier for just like a small sliver of time. It was easier probably to meet people, but that's kind of evaporated now. Now it's become infinitely harder to connect with people. I mean, to really connect.
Yeah. So it's been great meeting you. I'm really excited to make your acquaintance. I hope you come back sometime in the future. We'll chat some more. Just
Anytime.
reach out anytime. Give my love to the other Alex, as I like to call him. And
Absolutely.
I'll my wife's gonna be thrilled to watch this back. She never watches any of my content, okay, but she's gonna watch this one. She watched Pastor Artur Pavlovsky's. I had him on. You know about him?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I consider him like an old school real Christian, like in the jaws of the lion there, and it's just amazing to see the people that are fighting for truth. We're living in interesting times. I guess we could put it that way, right?
Yeah, the most interesting times.
I
That's
don't know.
the change is coming. Big changes are
I
coming,
don't
and
know if you have heard rumors about the mark of the beast and the end is near and all these sorts of things. We always hear about this.
yeah,
You don't take that stuff too seriously.
I don't know about that stuff. In general, I don't want to go too much into fear and despair.
Yeah, yeah,
Eh,
yeah,
at the end of the day, you know, God is for me. God is in control, and I'm a terrible human being. I know that, but I hope that everything works out for everybody, and I believe it will. Whatever may come, and things are going to be tough. They're going to be very, very hard,
You
very
remember?
difficult times ahead.
You remember Dr. Zev Zelenko or whatever his name was? Do you remember him?
Hmm.
He passed away.
Yes.
He had a very simple presentation of the gospel or whatever from his Jewish perspective, which was a quote from the Old Testament, do good and avoid evil. It's just pretty basic. Just do good, like, you know, serve God and do good and avoid evil. It sounds pretty easy, right? But I heard a Protestant preacher on the radio the other day. He said, living the Christian life is not difficult. Living the Christian life is not difficult. It's impossible. Like Jesus said, for man it's impossible, but with God nothing's impossible. So that's the difference. Like, it's when you realize, like you said, I'm a sinner and it's only by the grace of God that I'm going to be saved. That's it. You know, it's only by the grace of God that we can do good works. It's only by the grace of God we can go to church or pray or have hope, even to have hope, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And hope is the most important.
And remember that despair is a sin, even to despair of the salvation of our enemies. And I keep telling my wife, you have to love your enemies. You have to love the Pope, even though she hates him. You have to love Trudeau. You have to love Soros. You have to love these people. You don't have to like them. You don't have to like them. You shouldn't like them. Yeah. But you have to wish them well. You have to hope that they'll see the light and they'll end up in heaven with us, right? So
absolutely,
that can be tricky. That can be challenging.
Yeah. But it's not impossible, as you said. For us, maybe it's impossible, but for God, it's not impossible. So,
no longer I live, but Christ who lives in me. That's the goal. That's the goal. So I really hope to see you in heaven, and maybe I'll even see you again on my podcast. Thank you so much, my brother. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you for
care.
inviting me.
Love you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.